Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. As we all know now, in the last lesson, I already discussed with you that my own lesson is always interactive. I always make sure that everyone is left behind. Yeah, every one of us are in the same pace. So if you have any issue or any problem, you can always drop the questions on the chat box. So to begin, in today's lesson, we are going to do adverbial clauses. Adverbial clauses, yeah, for English, post-UTME question. Yeah, it's an indispensable question in post-UTME, especially in universities, University of Lagos, Ife, and other universities. Yeah, these questions, you should be able to answer them correctly in order to pass your exam. So you'll be banking on these marks in under 20 seconds. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to answer them correctly in this glimpse of 20 questions. So let's move on to the lesson's objective. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify adverbial clauses in any sentences. When you come across sentences, you should be able to identify adverbial clauses because I've noticed that some students, they always see English as, oh, this is a day-to-day conversation that I usually have with people. I should be able to answer the questions correctly. But when they get to the question exam, they usually see that it's a lot trickier than they expect. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify questions that has to do with adverbial clauses correctly, you should be able to know whether it is time, place, manner, or condition. And also you should be able to answer post-UTME grammar questions in under 20 seconds. That's the goal. In all our lessons, we are going to focus on grammars, you answering the questions effectively. So we are going to be treating a lot of past questions. That's why I always say that if you haven't gotten the past questions, you should try to get them because that will give you a headway to your exam. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, the foundation. Okay, so let's start with the basis. That's the foundation. I always like to start with the basic. I don't like assuming that you know everything. So we have to have the basic knowledge of what we want to approach, which is adverbial clauses. Some students might say, what is adverbial clauses again? This is too ambiguous. This is very difficult. What is this one again? Oh, I'm tired of this. Let me shock you. There's no way to, no, nothing, no gimmicks here. The meaning of adverbial clause is something that you already know, which is adverb. Adverb. Adverbial clause is the same as adverb. Forget about the clause. The big grammar there. It's just the same as adverb. So before we start, as I always told you, I always tell you that I always like my class to be engaging and interactive. So I believe that everyone should know what adverb is. So can you type the definition of an adverb for me on the chat box? Let's see if we are in the same pace as I am. Please, I want us to do that quickly without wasting much of our time. What is an adverb? Okay, let's see. I think some persons are dropping. An adverb is a word used to modify a verb or other adverb. Yeah, adverb is a word that gives more information about the verb. Wow, wow. I'm really impressed. That means you all know what an adverb is. They give information about the verb. They explain the state of the verb. Yeah. So it comes in different dimension. That is what we want to look at in today's lesson. Okay, let's proceed. Okay. So an adverbial clause is a group of words that has a subject as a verb and acts like an adverb. So they tell us the state of a verb, when, where, how, under what condition is the verb. So that's one of the strategies at which you're going to use to answer these questions when you come across them. Sometimes you have to think, when is this action? When did it happen? Where? How? Under what condition does it present itself? So if you can answer all these questions, I believe you can answer them correctly. Like, for example, if I say, I will leave tomorrow, the main idea there is what? I will leave tomorrow. So you're going to ask yourself this question: when will I leave? How? Where? Who? But here it says when I finish. When I finish tells us what? The adverbial clause of what? Time. That's what we want to look at. So the examiner might ask you, what adverbial clause are you presented with? Are you presented with the one that tells us the time, condition, where, that's location, and all that? So let's continue. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to drop them on the chat box. Okay, so let's look at Unilag post-UTME's trap. So Unilag almost always uses this exact same four options for this question. That's the time, place, manner, condition. So let's look at the secret triggers for each one. So the first one is what? The time clause. The time clause, it shows when something happens. It tells you when an action happened. So it's always important for you to look at the trigger words. That's the trigger words are the conjunctions that are used. For example, you look at when, whenever you want to indicate that the time, the sentence or the clause is talking about the time, you would have to pay attention to the trigger words there: when, while, before, after, since, until, as soon as. If you can see these trigger words, if it's used, please know that it's time. There's no gimmicks. You don't need to read the entire sentence. Just first look at the trigger words. For example, I left before the bus arrived. Before, that's the trigger word for what? Time. So that means the adverbial clause there is what? Time. That's just it. So before we proceed, if you understand, kindly click on the reaction icon. I'll wait for you to click on it before I can proceed. Okay, good. How about others? Yeah, fine. I'm waiting for others. Let's see if we are on the same pace. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to drop them on the chat box. Yeah, it's important that as I'm teaching you, you could make a screenshot of all these trigger words. They are important. Okay, the next one is the one that talk about the place. So for place is very easy. They usually use the trigger words where or wherever. Whenever you see where or wherever, you know that the trigger word there is talking about what place, the adverbial clause of place. Yeah, look at this example. Sit where you want or wherever you want. Sit where you want. So the adverbial clause there is what? Where. Today we are going to solve many questions together. Those questions are from past question, unilag transcendence part question. Yeah, you know that this lesson belongs to transcendence part. So we are using the past questions to answer questions that are explained in this lesson. Okay, let's move on to the next adverbial clause, which is the one that talks about the manner at which something happened. The manner in which something happened. Wow, why is this not opening? Okay, so it shows how something happens. I'm coming. Give me a sec. I'm coming. I think I. Give me a sec.
Akinola, kindly unmute yourself. Akinola.
Okay, welcome back. So sorry to cut you. Okay, now we're going to move on to the manner clause now. You know, clauses are the group of words that have a subject and an object, a verb. Yeah. So now we are talking about the adverbial clause. Adverbial clause explains the state of a verb in a sentence. So it could be the time. It tells us the time when something happened, the place, that's where, the manner, the condition at which something has happened. So now we're looking at the manner clause now. Okay, the manner clause shows how something happens. So when you want to answer question types like this, you have to check for triggers. Whenever you come across triggers that has to do with as if, as though, how, just as, yeah, you know that you are presented with the manner. She spoke as if she was angry. That's a question. As if she was angry means like you have to look at the expressions there. That's because sometimes the Unilag post-UTME, they usually trap student there. So try to look at the mood. That would, whenever you see something like related with the behavior or mood, know that the answer there is manner clause. Okay, let's move on. Okay, for places clause, I explained that the trigger words that you should focus on is where, wherever. For example, when you are presented with a sentence like sit where you want or sit wherever you want, so you know that you are to type place. Yeah, the answer for that sentence is place. So let's move on to the fourth condition now. The fourth adverbial clause, which is the one that explains condition clause. Yeah, it shows possibility or requirements. Yeah, condition set a rule. If you break that rule, it won't happen. So the trigger words you should pay attention to include if, unless, provided that, supposing, and should. For example, if you study, you will pass, or you won't. So provided you study, that's when you will pass. If you don't study, you won't pass. So you can see there's a condition to that. You can see the if clause there. If what? This is a conjunction. Yeah, subordinate conjunction. So you can see them. So when you come across this trigger word, and you can see that it answers, yeah, the question conjunction, um, conditional. So you know that this is a condition clause. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to drop them on the chat box. Okay, so let's move on to post-UTME strategies, which is very, very important. You have to have this checklist at the back of your head. So the step one, you need to pay attention to the trigger words. Please do not read the full sentence whenever you come across a question. For example, unless the university extends, yeah, unless the university extends, yeah, don't read the question or the questions, just focus on the trigger words. Yeah, you can say unless there, you know that that's condition immediately. Step two, if you still do not figure out what the answer is, you can ask these four questions. When did this happen? Where? How? When is for time? Where is for place? How is the manner, the mood, behavior? It explains the expression. Is the person happy? Is the person sad, angry? Yeah, it talks about the behavior of the subject. If that's a conditional statement, if something happen, this will be the result or the consequence. If it doesn't happen, this will be the consequence or the result. So that's is conditional. So when you can ask these four questions, I believe you'll be able to figure out the answers appropriately. The third step is for you to think like an examiner. They are testing your speed recognition, confusion between time and condition. Yeah, sometimes they want to confuse you between the time and condition. But I believe you can apply all these strategies, you'll be able to figure out your answers. You know, the time is when, condition is the if clause. It explains the conditional statement, the condition of two variables. You always have two sentences in condition. One is the if clause and the other is the result. The fourth one is the elimination method. Cancel the wrong function, cancel unrelated meaning, cancel confusing options, and pick your answers. Okay, let's move on. So if you want us to move on to the questions, kindly click on the reaction icon. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's why we are here. So we are presented with questions. These questions are from Transcendence Parts past questions. So some of you that have gotten it, I'm very sure that you've come across questions like this. And if you haven't gotten it, I believe you are missing a lot. I don't want you to miss a lot. Kindly order for your own. Okay, the first question starts orientation as soon as the VC arrives. I said that the first thing you should pay attention is you don't need to read all the questions, just look at for the what the trigger word. Yeah, as soon as, and what question does this answer? It answers the time. You know, you have to look at it from the back of your head. Yeah, what question is this answering? Start orientation as soon as the VC arrives. So it talks about the time. So the immediate action timing. So that's it. You can see these questions are a piece of cake if you can understand all the rules I've explained. The second one, provided you study your past question, you will pass your exam. I think these questions are not complete. Okay. Provided you study your past question, you will pass your exam. So you can know that you can see that there's a condition that is applied to this. Provided. Provided is what? The trigger word there is provided. So that the condition must meet the requirement. So you know that that is condition. Set up decks wherever there was lightning, wherever, wherever is what place, points directly to the location. She spoke as though she had been lecturing, as though I told you that manner always emphasize the behavior, the mood of the speaker or the subject. You know, in every sentence, you will have a subject and a verb. The subject is the doer of the action. So this one explains the word manner as though it describes the behavioral style. And the next one, invigilators walked while students were answering. While explains what time. Simultaneous event action. It explains the time and simultaneous event action. So you can see that these questions are very easy. Another set of questions from 5, 6 to 10. Unless the uni extend the deadline, unless, unless is what condition, it expresses if not constraints. Yeah, unless, if the university do not extend the deadline, something will happen. So that's condition. Seventh, find textbooks where the archives are kept. Where, that's the location. It talks about the place. identify storage location. Where is the trigger word there? That's why I said, if possible for you, you can memorize all the trigger words. Question 8, handled item exactly how the lecturer instructed. How? The trigger word there is what? How. How explains what? The manner. It focuses on the execution or method. The next one is what? Locked gates before the heavy downpour started. What's the trigger word there? Before. Before also talks about what? Time. Before. Before something. Before an action. All these are the things that you are going to be doing when you're brainstorming at the back of your head. Before is what the trigger word there, and before explains what time. That's chronological progressions point. The next one, if the portal opens by midnight, I will upload. So easy. If the portal opens by midnight, I will upload. What's the trigger word there? If. So that's an hypothetical event. Dependency. I think, yeah, people that they did post-UTME with us, they would understand what I'm talking about because I taught them what conditionals are. We have first conditional, second conditionals, and third conditional. They explain hypothetical situations. So this is a condition. The trigger word here is what if. So it's a condition adverbial clause. Another set of questions, 11 to 15. Okay. Runners collapse after they cross the line. What's the trigger word there? After. That explains the time sequence of operations. The next one, they perform as if they were professionals. As if. As if is the trigger word for what? Manner. It complains behavior. It answers the questions about their move, the mood of the verb there. Yeah, the verb and the pronoun there. Yeah. As if they were professionals. You can see it explains the behavior, the behavioral execution. Store your cards where you want, you can retrieve it. This is very easy. You know, for place, we have where or wherever. So this is place, specific regional placements. 14, supporting the electricity fails, backup starts. Supposing condition assumes requirement states. Yeah. Supposing is the condition there. So you can easily reason to this, like you can see from this conditional statement now, supposing the electricity fail, backup start. So if this doesn't happen and the results, there won't be consequence. So it's always important you understand the context. Okay, I need to be fast with the rest. I'm going to send your own work to you. Let me do that before we proceed because the lesson will soon come to an end. Okay, I'm going to copy this and paste. So this homework you can check from your past papers, transcendence parts, past questions. That's where you can get the questions for your homework. I've notified page, the pages and the questions, the years. So that way it can be more practical. You can practice what you've learned from this lesson. Okay, let's proceed because we're running out of time. As we are proceeding, if you have any question, please do not hesitate to drop the questions on the chat box. Okay, okay. Access denied since the meeting commenced, since that's time. Tracking the specific time starting point. Okay, the last set of questions, she painted the canvas just as she envisioned, just as that's the manner at which it compares the standard of the process, the manner in which she envisioned the painting, that's the cover. The next one, the protest ceased when statement was released, when it's the time, the trigger word there is what's when, pinpoints of event terminations. Should you require any technical assistance? Should, that's the condition. Should you require any technical assistance? Should form of inverted condition, that's if. Just pay attention.